effect if 1% is doing it, then suddenly crime rate is going down. Well, what is happening is they rebalance the systems. You know? If enough people meditate, all the grid systems get back into balance, so we don't get all these funny signals anymore that we need to act out in whatever form we do it, right? That's the gift. So yes, and I know you have small ones, but those are for personal use. Enough. More than enough. You don't need for personal use more than just such a tiny little skull. But if you, for example, like to do work with groups, you take a little bit larger one. And if you want to do ceremonies, well, you either have a very active one or you take a larger one. And, you know, Sam is in that sense very ideal because he creates a field that's very powerful. So, yeah, that's why people like to work with the ancient skulls. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yes, Andrew.
Do the ancient skulls all tend to be large?
In the stories that people tell, it seems as if only those that are human-sized are important. But we know that, for example, the Tibetans have made them from any size, and for them it was not so important. And it depends again where you need them for. I think the reason that they did the human size initially is because they wanted to keep alive the legend that it was the human skull, and later it became more like a tool, so it was becoming less important what the size was. But still, most of them have a reasonable size, yes. True. Yeah.
When you said something about Europe and the grid and how different it was to arrive here and to be able to have that contrast, what in your belief system causes Europe to be in its state as compared to here?
Yeah, well, coming from Holland, you know, I did a lot of research there, and when Jeanne and I went back 1 year, I think in 2006, we checked quite some of the vortexes because I wanted to compare. The size of a vortex, to give you a little bit of an idea of when we talk about size. If you take a chakra vortex and you measure, you know, what well, let's say the radius is of that one, then of most of in this Sedona area, it goes to about 17, 18 kilometers, so that means 11, 12 miles. They're huge. They cover large area. The one that you see there is covering that distance, the same that we have here. You know, so we're sitting in the center of this place, which gives us the possibility to really feel better what the key energy of it is. But even when you're so many miles away, you could still tap into this one, but then there are so many others that it gets a bit confusing, right? But what is happening, you can say if this one and that one is totally in balance, you have the optimal size, right? So what's the optimal size? And that's about 20 kilometers for a chakra vortex, which comes to about 14 miles, yeah? So you can express every vortex as a percentage of this one, because that's universal. And then in Sedona, the chakra vortexes are roughly around 80–90%, which is tremendously high. But if you go to my country, they're 15%. So you may, yeah, the question was, well, what is causing that? Well, if so many people are so intensely influencing every square inch of a piece of land, it will have a detrimental effect if those people are not doing it from a total unconditional love point of view, which they don't. So it's reducing and reducing and reducing. And now we're at the point that either the Dutch people are going to change it by being more active and do more meditations, or they come to a point that there's hardly any support for their normal natural systems anymore. It's pretty scary. And we went also to Denmark, and same thing. Maybe slightly more, it was a little bit closer to 20, but still, it's very low. Well, when we were at the spiritual center there, bringing people with a crystal skull around, it more than doubled in just going out for almost 1.5 hours. So we have that potential, you know, that's where we see that happening. And what I hope is that more people are going to do that, you know. Yeah. But that's what's causing it. And so the denser the population, the more artificial electromagnetic energies, people that are not in balance, there you have it. Because that's one of the things that I didn't mention. This is affecting on the smaller grids like a disturbance, but on the larger grids, the meridians and the chakra type of vortexes, is diminishing it, is not disturbing it. So that's a good thing, at least. You know, so even when you, like in Holland, is reduced to 15% of its optimum, what is there is still pure. You know, that's, I think, the gift of Mother Earth. Otherwise, I don't know. I've chosen to live here and I will stay here, but then I wouldn't even think about visiting there, I think, if that would be really disturbed, because it means there would be not square inch that's not disturbed there. Yeah. So, and the same you see in Denmark, you know, when you drive through, it is far less densely populated, but there is not one square inch that has not been turned upside down, you know, over time by people. And realize also what's happening. As I said, here are also lines. This is an energy line. If this is diminished for whatever reason, it will begin to pull energy from other areas. So at a certain moment, you begin to take it away from more positive areas. You know, that's why I'm never happy when Sedona, fortunately, cannot grow beyond much more. But when it's growing, it will really begin to pull away more energy. So you have to put in more effort in order to keep the balance. Fortunately, because many people are coming here with spiritual purposes, that's what we do, and there are many people who do meditation. There are very spiritual people in the Sedona area. So I'm not so worried about Sedona. Fortunately not, yes.
Yeah, if you don't work with the first star chakra,
there are many different definitions about what we call secondary chakras, and there are different systems that have different ideas about that. But these are the ones that I believe to be the ones that are there because that's what the Earth is telling. So we have all kinds of other, let's say, centers in our system that we can use. And we know all about those chakras as well, right? That's why many people are doing their healing work with. We all have chakras in our feet. We have them between our knees. There are many different more chakras. Some people talk nowadays about the higher heart. There are many different definitions of them. And I think it was Barbara and Brennan who came up with 21 secondary chakras or something like that. So it's a matter of how you look at things. I think there may be even 100 secondary ones, each having their own different functions. But the reason why I restrict to that is because I believe that when those are in balance, it will pull everything else into balance. Yeah? That's at least the belief.